Hello, welcome to a new episode on our podcast. And today, if you want to learn how to make your house nicer, how to make your house as an investment nicer so you can rent it or sell it for more, or your office, this is the episode for you. I want to present Supriya Fernandez. Hey, Supriya, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for coming to this episode.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. It's very exciting to be on this podcast today, actually.
Thank you. It is for us as well. Let me just present you. You are a fit-out master, you might say. That's what you are doing for so many years, and we're going to talk about it. But before we're going to dive into fit-out, tell us a little bit about your personal journey here in Dubai, which I know is very, very interesting.
Actually, I grew up in Kuwait, and then our family was caught up right in the middle of the Gulf War. So you can imagine everything was uprooted. We were we had to go to India for a while, where I completed my architecture. So I came to Dubai in 2000, fresh out of college. At that time, the World Trade Center was the tallest building, and those were very interesting times because there were very few women also in the construction industry. And right away, the company that I started working for, they were a subcontractor. And I was put into the Grand Hyatt project, the Shangri-La project. I would go to these sites. It was very hot. It was interesting to learn from the ground up all these things, But of course, even then, Dubai was moving very fast. So if I came in 2000, by 2003, I got a job in a big consultant's office in Emirates Towers. That was a big leap, really, for 3 years. And that's the time Emirates Hills and all just started. So we had a lot of people buying land in Emirates Hills. A lot of our clients were extremely wealthy people, owners of banks. And I started out as an interior designer. And then soon I became the main interior designer because it grew so fast from 2003 to 6 that I started as a single person on the team because they didn't know if it was an architecture firm. And then eventually we had 12 people under us. We had jobs signing up. It was fairly stressful. And then in 2006, with some partners, we set up my first adventure, let's say, in fit out, where we had some partners. And that was also the first time after a couple of years in 2008, we saw the incredible crash. So, because before that, you never had to think about business. You opened your doors, people would come, and you'd go from 0 to 1 million, almost in 3 months. So those were very dynamic and exciting times, the 2000 to 2010. And it was really like a roller coaster. But I think the things that we learned at that time are very important. So then finally, I ended up setting up my own company in 2013. And now it's been 12 years. We took a lot of the lessons that we learned from all those ups and downs that happened. So we are generally fairly conservative. I am very fond of a technical team. So I'm an architect myself. I like to have engineers on our team because I find that their understanding is a lot better of the whole process because, and that's mainly the journey. I mean, personally, of course, I came here, I got married, I had kids. It's 25 years now. So Dubai's been very good to me. But of course, I can't say that there were no close, hairy, scary experiences because when you run a business, you do spend almost 60% of your time either anxious or scared.
60% is a good ratio. Yeah, sometimes it's even more. It's 70, 80 sometimes.
Some people, the division when you're doing generally well is 30, one third. Yeah. 1/3, you're happy. Your cash flow is good. Your business is flowing. Everything's great. 1/3, you're anxious because you're oh my God, what's going to happen now? And 1/3, you're actually depressed because you're I'm doomed. But then if you don't give in to the doomed feeling, everything always, and that's my experience from if you say from 2006 till even today, 19 years of on the roller coaster. That's what happens.
Definitely. And when you're speaking about commercial real estate and fit out industry, which you are part of for so many years,
yes.
Can you just tell us what has changed in this industry since the early 2000s to now?
A lot. If you say early 2000s, there were no owned commercial real estate. The first ones came up in like 2007, the handovers happened. And they were in like JLT really, where there was no proper approval process. JLT didn't have their process at that time. You had to go to JAFZA to get the approval because they had nothing. And it's only around 2012 that they started their own approval process. So it's like we all grew up together, like the government regulations, the people who started buying, the early pioneers who had some faith, let's say, because I remember I drove around with a client and he would look at all these buildings and businessmen. He's like, who's going to who's going to work here? Who's going to live here in 2008? And then now look at it, like there's no space.
It's already building and still there's not enough space for everybody.
And nobody believed in 2008 that any of these things would get filled up. They'd be like, who's going to come? Who's going to be using these offices? And now there was a time in 2022 post-COVID, there was zero availability of commercial space. Not only did it all get filled up, people wanted spaces but couldn't find them.
Yeah,
now,
definitely.
okay, it's a little bit settled down because there are some new constructions coming onto handover next year, and there is equilibrium. But in 2022, we had nothing. So it's been amazing because the people, and of course, a lot of things changed. In 2007, the first people started fitting out. So the commercial market changed dramatically. A lot of millionaires and multimillionaires in our industry were actually made at that time. And they started just like a guy with like few workers going from like office to office in those JLTs. And today they are like having revenues of 300 million. So it's because they were early, pioneers at the moment when these things started happening. Because the landlords who bought at that time, they didn't realize they're getting a shell and core. They thought they're getting an office when they saw what they got, and they couldn't rent it. Some of them did find tenants who rented it and fitted them out, but many of them had to fit out to get the tenants. And but then now, today, everyone has a lot of confidence because, of course, we're talking like, it's like 18 years. Many of the people who bought 18 years ago have not just recovered their investment in terms of rental, because the average is about 9 to 10% appreciation every year. So in about 10 years, you recover all the money you invested, but the property also appreciates, so you can sell it. And now in the 15th year, people are like, it's just something that it's like a gift that keeps on giving.
Definitely.
So now everyone's very confident. But at that time, in the early 2000s, fit-out companies really came to life, I would say, because this freehold offices and apartments and retail units all were like...
empty.
Yes, and handed over.
Yeah.
So there was a boom. There is still today, but what somebody told me, even in DED and other places, like if 200,000 companies open a year, like 180,000 like close, even 300 close, because there are the people of the previous year who can shut. So the people who have sustained are very few, because there is a great level of learning and skill you need to acquire year on year. In the early 2000s, you would just take paper drawings and you would go to whoever, and then they would say some things and ask you to make some changes. And there were big sheets and other things. And now it's nothing like that. Between 2012 to 2020, they made everything online. You don't see a person. Like I can't like go and like talk to you. You need to make a Zoom call appointment or something, and that could take 2 days. So this is where like the companies that trained their staff, learned the process, became the pioneers for this online approval system, have really capitalized, because if a new company starts, they don't know this process. They are like lost. They could technically even do the work, but they don't know how to get in through the door. And the problem is, without the right paperwork, you can't bring like a piece of wood or like, carpet tile into a space. They need to check all the permits. There are Emirates IDs for everybody. They need all the insurances. So it's gone from
it's much more regulated now.
It was a sort of wild, wild west scenario. And now, and they faced a lot of trouble in the 2010s. Like external windows were broken, fires were happening. So they are like extremely strict, but it's very good. But the only thing I would say is that most people are unaware of the number of steps, the process involved. And because they don't know this, in the middle of the start of the process, since they're not well informed, they just say, this is too complicated, or there's too much paperwork, or this is like, they get all frustrated. And that's really not the point to get frustrated. There should be a lot more education about the process for anybody who is starting any works in their house, apartment, retail. They should understand that all the process it's very logical. And it's not that I can just walk in. Somebody has to review it. There is an engineer sitting somewhere who checks it. Then if there is something they find unacceptable, they do mention it, and there's a reason. So the problem is when you select the wrong person to do the work, either they don't know how to do the drawings properly, or they're unaware of the regulations. So what happens is there's a lot of back and forth. And as there is no human that you can talk to on the other side, that back and forth takes a very long time if you're submitting it to an online portal. But if you go to the right company who has experience, who knows what are the regulations and makes the correct drawings or informs you from the beginning, you save about 5 to 6 weeks on the process for approvals.
And a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of
and
working.
A lot of, more important than anything else, money and frustration. Because
definitely.
because everyone has a budget. And the more time you waste, let's say that you've taken it for rent, or you're expecting a tenant, or you're expecting something else, and then your time starts ticking. And it's more than that. You start getting very frustrated. And when the client's frustrated, they are like mad, and then everyone's running around. But you can never save the process when it reaches that point.
Definitely. And on that note, we spoke a lot about regulations and all those things, but maybe you have any more like tips or advices for office owners, okay? So they want to have, as you said, they're getting a shell and core office as a handover, and now they want to fit out to make a fit out so they can have better tenants. It's much easier for a tenant to imagine himself in the space. That's why we have the exemplary apartments on a construction site, for example, because it makes much more. And I remember myself, even before I bought my own apartment, the exemplary apartment made such a big impact on me that even though it wasn't exactly the right project, or I saw even better project, it's still the effect of this apartment, of this show apartment, made me choose this project. So what kind of tips or advices you can give to office owners that want to have a better tenants in their apartment, in their office, sorry?
People, if you're like an owner, people, even till today, always, they can think they're rational, but they're very emotional. They're very influenced by how they feel. So it's very important, there could be 2 equal offices, one fitted out 10 years ago, some tatty carpet and whatever, and it could technically be a lot cheaper. And actually the owner, the tenant who takes it, maybe has to do very little, maybe just change the carpet, and the office would look really nice. But because people are emotional, they are ready to pay twice the price if they walk in and see, the thing is today, the entire world is exposed to international interior design because of Pinterest, because of Instagram, because of whatever. People are much more well-traveled. They are. In the early 2000s, nobody, you just saw some pictures. I remember I used to buy books, when is the new Office volume coming out? Nobody buys these books anymore. If something nice wins an award in Finland or anywhere else in some interior design award ceremony, I will get to see it right away. And then because people travel to a lot of hotels, and there's been a lot of cross-pollination of design for hotels, residential and commercial, because the looks have sort of unified. If you like something in a hotel, you'd want a similar feel in the office. If you like something in an apartment, you want a similar feel in because it's become, I can't really say I approve of it, because a lot of individual design identities have melted away and formed a uniform
It's all very similar now. You can
it's
see the
all
same offices in Finland,
Yes,
Brazil,
it's melted
Paris or Dubai.
into a pot. So
Yeah.
there is no one's like wanting to make a strong statement. The same things happen to cars. 10, 20 years ago, you'd have red cars, yellow. Now you see all the cars are white, black, gray, or like this beigey gold, and that's it.
Yeah.
You don't see colored cars. Everything's become uniform this way. So it's there are pluses and minuses, but people are very, very exposed to the ultimate things available in the world, which never was there before. So they are easily going to be influenced by their first impressions. As you said, when you see a show villa or a show. So when they walk into that office, if they have an immediate emotional reaction, you're much more likely to rent it and at a good rate. Now, of course, you have to look at the numbers, but the real estate market, and if you're a property owner, it completely supports that we are not going in a negative direction. Even if we did, because now, after me being here 25 years, I have seen 3 fairly violent dips. 3, not 1. It's like 3, And 2008 was a disaster, but 2015 to 19 was like not so disastrous, but it was very drawn out. You see the 2008 crash, 9 was terrible, 10 was picking up. By 11, everyone was on their feet, really, here. But in 2015, it was a slower, some sort of crash happened. You couldn't see it. No one talked about it. But slowly all the offices got empty. And this went on almost till COVID. And of course, after COVID, we have seen amazing times. Of course, the leadership was wonderful here. I remember feeling we're so lucky that the whole world's closed. But here we are in 2020, like May, they opened everything. And March was the lockdown, and by May, we were 100% open. But even in April, we were semi-open. It took time for the market to pick up because we saw the first real swing back only in August. But everybody was very supportive. And that is why from 2021, mainly so many of our clients are people who came internationally, who said that our governments in all these countries dealt with this crisis very badly, and we'd like a safe place where we can keep our money and know that we'd maybe not be locked down in the future. And that's why we saw a real boom, which is continuing almost till today.
Definitely. And offices has been, as you saw their ups and downs. Also,
Yes.
homes and apartments and villas saw their ups and downs as well. But I feel that it's been such a, maybe default investment part, to invest in houses, in properties.
Yes.
So many people in Dubai do that. So many, everywhere you go, if you throw a stone, you can throw a stone. But if you could throw a stone, you could hit 5 real estate brokers.
Yes.
So it's been so
honestly speaking,
default, but anyhow, the difference between those apartments is the fit out, is how the
Yes.
apartment looks. So can you share us some tips around that as well?
See, the thing is, the older properties in JBR and all these areas, they're very high value because of the location.
Of course.
You'll never be able, you just go down, there's the beach.
Yeah.
But the finishing that was done is atrociously bad.
Definitely.
It's so bad. It's like terrible. So the point is, of course, we've had a lot of clients who do this. If they manage to buy one of these properties, they turn it into, and of course, another thing is it was all handed over in 2011, 10, that time. So of course, today it looks terrible if you have like any of the small tiles and the old finishes, where today the look is very, neutral,
modern,
stone,
ceramics,
big pieces of stone, exactly, like wood, warm. So definitely buying an apartment, if you can do it, and renovating it will give you the maximum return, because they're not livable in their 2010 condition. And of course, everything's changed. It looks bad. If you spend some millions on an apartment, and you wouldn't want to go into how it looks right now. So, but most of the people in terms of business models, because it's fairly crowded there in JBR and these areas in the marina, but there are so many tourists who come for the short term lets, for like holidays, for any season. So we have a lot of clients who do this, and it is, honestly speaking, if I had a lot of money lying around, that's definitely what I would do, because I would buy one of these apartments. We'd have our own team. We'd renovate it to look contemporary, but not go for anything like super dramatic in terms of coloring, because this is another major lesson from like 10 to 15 years. Don't do something that will age badly. If you go neutral, it's not going to age badly. You can change some accents later and some bits, and it will look contemporary even 5 to 7 years later. But if you know, in the early 2010s, people loved this bright colors. So they would paint walls blue and red and
pastel
orange.
colors.
Like very primary colors,
Yeah.
which then now are like completely out of favor because everyone has completely gone into like soft grays, beiges. Yes, you'll have like an accent, but the accent also is not as like, it's not like the primary color chart. It's like a very neutral version of the color. So this is where like, I think a lot of old owners have challenges because they have properties that they were fitted out in the early 2010 to 14. And now they are finding it very difficult to rent it to anybody because when the people come in, they look at it, it looks tatty. And the properties are actually currently sitting empty. There's a lot of inventory which is not moving. So, of course, an owner has to make a pragmatic decision. But given the history of the UAE, given that, people want to come here still, it is a desirable location which has a maximum millionaire migration. And if you have earned some revenue from your office, the best thing to do is to give it a facelift. It doesn't have to be a violent facelift, but something that makes it easy for a tenant or even the buyer that you want to sell it to visualize themselves in that space. Then you will be able to get a huge amount of like return on this facelift because it was already fitted. The facelift's not as expensive as if you have to do it from shell and core.
Or if you have to actually wait for someone to get this apartment and see the potential in it, like you see it now.
Yes. This is very important.
Yeah.
So I would definitely advise it. My personal experience is we've been renovating properties for owners from 2015 or 14, that time in my personal company. And they always find a tenant pretty much before we finish the fit out or just after we finish the fit out. And these are properties that would be empty for like years, like 2 to 3 years. And then finally some real estate agent convinced them, okay, guys, look, I can't rent it till you
fit out.
Till you do something with this because it's not looking nice.
Take us into such a case study for one of these apartments. Take us into that.
See, generally, I would say the best case study in terms of a landlord fit out is that we have an owner who has like he has half a floor, but he's rented out to separate people. So like the first office he had, nobody was taking it. So somehow the agent convinced him, give it a facelift. It's like looking tatty. We changed some pantry cabinets. It was not even a huge amount of money. We changed the glass. Like, nowadays the glass people like this black glass and they like with the channels. Before it was like the older one. Changed the floor to a nice wooden, this LVT flooring, which looks like wood, but it's actually like vinyl fixed because that's easy to clean and mop. Painted it up, changed the lights, just the light fittings. So there are track lights and put some nice ready-made panels on the wall. And he rented it at I think 1.5 times of, and then it went so well that then he decided to renovate each and every one of his offices. And this is from October 2023 till now. So we've done 4 for the same owner. And he's renting it above market value. He's renting it with tenants that come in from, let's say, abroad. And those are some of the best ones because they generally give you the entire rent in a single payment and they take it at least for 2 to 3 years. So you do very well. So if you are investing, let's just randomly catch a figure for 1,000 square foot office. If you invest like 50 or 60,000 for this facelift, your rent is like 170,000 or 200. So the first check will definitely cover most of the fit out. Second check, if you have in 2 checks, will cover all of it. And then the rest is the money you make. And it is easily. And there are people who get the payment in a single check. So that means you invest 50,000, your first check is 170,000. So you've lost nothing if you have the money. Whereas otherwise your office would have just sat there, literally just sat there. No rent at all. You're paying service charges to the building management, and
you're losing money.
You are
every
losing,
day it's empty, for sure.
You are losing money, You're not if you consider you own the property, but you are if you actually see. Many of the people also are like older, like they bought it a long time ago, and this is the income they use to like
Live on.
Yes. So the longer you leave it like that, so you have to maybe do your numbers, but also it makes more sense to say that, yes, if I own a property for more than 10 years and I've made money from it, I should keep aside, let's say, a portion of everything I made over these 10 years. It's a small portion so that I can facelift it after a reasonable amount of time so that I can then repeat the cycle, maybe with even better return than before, because the market's much better than it was from 2015 to 2020 almost. So people are making almost double the rental that they were able to make at that time. So you should, in my opinion, reinvest it because it makes sense. Because you have to look at your property not as a thing that will pay you up forever. You also have to maintain it and
to make sure it will pay up for you forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to. And nothing, like if you don't take care of anything, it doesn't last. A car needs maintenance.
Anything. People,
yes.
Relationships, we all need maintenance.
Even people, yes. As we age, we need a lot of maintenance to stay like at least as active as we were before.
Let's talk a little bit about the trends. I know that there are many interesting trends. You mentioned some of them, the world being such a melting pot for how the perfect office should look, how the right apartment should look. Take us a little bit to the current trends now. What are you looking for in terms of the most interesting trends going on now?
See, there's a lot of change in terms of people are very keen on lighting. People are very keen on some form of automation. They like it. They want the motion sensors.
A smart house.
A smart house or even an office. It's nice. Yeah. And like once upon a time, lighting was just a very practical thing we all did. Just simply step lights and done. Now it's nothing like that. Not a single office is like that. Like if there's an office where the workstation is, they will have lights which come down, focus lighting, task lighting, mood lighting. People are really like interested in color temperatures. I'm telling you, like it's like, okay, we want daylight, warm light, like cool light, everything. So there is a lot of lighting is very important. Again, I think it's because social media and the connection to the rest of the world has educated people in terms of your consumer, your customer. So your customer already has an idea of what they like and what they want. And okay, they might have budget restrictions or not really, but they already have a picture. Whereas once upon a time, it was designers who just told the customer that, okay, this is the trend. And they were not like, now they know what it is. I think doctors have the same problem. Clients know everything. They read up everything and they tell them their job. So the thing is, this right now, the trend right now is very soft. People are not doing white walls also anymore. It's either a very soft gray. People like, in terms of paint, they like lime washes, not like metallic. It's like very soft, it's, you feel like it's like a cloud. The floor is soft. The lighting is like soft. The walls are very off-white, but like a little bit grayish or beigeish, but not like stark. So any of the dramatic elements that used to be there are not there. They're more in texture. And it's, I think, for people to feel very psychologically comfortable in the interior and not like startled by it. This is the trend. So it's very important. And I think it's not a bad thing because even if the trend changes, which it will, because see, then people will get bored of seeing.
This is why it's called trends, right?
Yes.
Because it changes all the time.
But if you have, like, let's say 80 or 90% of your space neutral, it's easy to create an accent in the future. But if you have the entire space like they did either in the 70s and the early 2000s as very, dramatic, very black and white, very gray, red, then it's harder to transform that.
Definitely.
It was that way, I know, because we used to use like orange back-painted glass. Everything was splashy.
And wood,
yes,
wood everywhere.
Dark wood. It was
Definitely.
very dark.
Yeah.
But it was very trendy. The dark wood with the bright colors, which is now the opposite. Wood has to be like almost white, washed out of its woodiness.
Yeah, definitely.
It is not even beige anymore. It's sort of like not there.
Yeah.
So it's like a white oak without any
features to it.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And regarding that, we just mentioned a few of those, but what are the common mistakes you see when people are renovating maybe themselves, without any external help, their own house, their own office?
I would say that they talk to too many people, and then they are like, you see, because people do have different tastes. I feel that you should try, it's very important to freeze what you want before you start the process. Because any fit out company, or any company for that matter, you and I are talking, but you and I are not going to go and fix this gypsum wall or this light fitting or, anything. So the problem becomes that if you are starting the process, you like something, but you're not fully sure of it. Then you talk to someone else. Then they tell you, no, this is not nice. I saw something else. Then you go back to like your contractor, and then they will be like, okay, fine. Because the contractor does want to make you happy, possibly, but also because their payment will get stuck if you're not. So they'll agree. But then what happens is, the process is very challenging, because while you and I can understand, and a drawing is a simple thing to change, instructions that go to the site, the workers, they're quite dumb. And also, because they're not educated, that's why they work in these lower blue collar jobs. And they're not, even if no matter how much you push them, no matter how much you pay them even well or not well or anything, all, carrot or stick, they have a limited amount of motivation for that amount of money that they earn. They live here away from their families. So the mistake I feel is like, you have to really understand the process to make yourself not frustrated as a client. You have to try to say, I want this, be sure about what you want. Say, this is my budget. I don't want to change this budget. Whoever is your contractor, say, what can I do to make sure we stay in this budget and this time? The contractor then can easily and surely tell you, like, look, if you don't make these changes, if we freeze all this thing, if we don't do anything, we can easily achieve this. If everything, any uncertainty or lack of, certainty in any element, because see, any fit out or any construction is a matter of multiple elements coming together in a short time frame. So we want, the more solid and firm this thing is, the easier it is to execute it within the time frame. Should also the budget and the payments be on time, because there are all variables. But let's assume that a client has the money ready, they are ready to pay on time, they're comfortable with everything. It's very unlikely that the project will frustrate anybody. But if you make changes, if you decide what you only selected is not nice, that small change actually throws the entire project timeline into a tailspin, because everyone down the line is looking for an excuse. Like someone will be like, oh, but you changed this, but you changed. And then you get annoyed because you think it's a small change. The contractor or whoever you're working with gets irritated because they're dealing with a lot of frustration in terms of transferring that information to the downline and getting them to understand, because they just already made them understand something else. Maybe the drawings on site will get messed up, maybe. So there are a lot of chaotic things which happen. And this is the primary cause of almost all like disagreements, like changing things, talking, it goes up and down. So I would say that if you're proceeding with this project, understand that we are not like in a Western country. There, of course, the labor is very expensive, and you don't want to make them come for more than any time they need to, because they'll bill you very highly. Here, the labor may be cheaper, but they're not as qualified or technical. So the best thing to do to make everyone as less frustrated as possible is finalize everything, understand your budgets, and try to work with whoever it is to say that these are non-negotiables for you. That I need this on this much time. What can we do? So then if everything is frozen and everything is not moving, it's quite possible you will achieve it. If you are going to, and see, you are the client, it's your money. You have to understand that if you change, it could be that somebody puts up something you don't like. Then you have to change it. But then you have to understand that change does have an implication, and it should not frustrate you, because you have to weigh whether
you want to enjoy the final outcome.
Yes, you want to enjoy the outcome. So you say, okay, look, I really don't like what is selected. I'm ready to
amend it.
But I have to understand that this comes with some frustration.
Yeah, of course.
If you do, then the process becomes easier.
Definitely.
Because people don't start out, we're not in a place, we're not in like, I don't know, there are places where regulations are not as firm as they are here. But here, it's very difficult for someone to just take your money and go. These were things that used to happen in the early 2000s. They don't really happen now because Dubai is very regulated. All money has to go into bank accounts. There has to be
escrows,
to paper trails. So you've paid someone, it's very unlikely they will be able to just take your money and disappear. If they did, like, you've not done your due diligence. Someone who's around for a long time, they care about their reputation. They care about their Google reviews. They care about, they're not closing shop tomorrow. So they're not really looking to take your money and get on a plane. And, but you have to also do your due diligence. You have to understand what steps you're taking because the process is very frustrating. There is no, we help out a lot of people who have been stuck with contractors and approvals because we've been around a long time. So if someone goes to, let's say, a building management or a government authority, there is a list of people who know the process. So they give them this list and we are on this list. So we do get approached a lot by people who, okay, the contractor did the work, but he didn't get the approvals. Now, the problem is no one will let you operate your clinic or your restaurant or without all the documents. So then they get stuck in a very frustrating cycle. So my advice would be do your due diligence. Try to finalize your design before you do your homework, basically. And it's not just referrals. Check, the
actual house, the actual fit out projects.
Fit out, exactly. And you shouldn't have a bad experience because for every fly-by-night person, there are probably right now in Dubai 3 reputable people in every price bracket because there are price brackets. It's just that you can go to the ones who are super expensive. Maybe they will reduce your headache, but you're paying almost triple the price. Yeah. Then you can go to someone in the middle and they'll cause you some headache, but you'll still get what you want and you will be able to actually get more out of them. And there are people at the bottom who'll just come with some rucksack. But if you stand there yourself, you can save the money that the company would have earned. So you have to understand also that your budget is determining how stressful maybe your experience is with a contractor and the contractor you select. So, you have to do a lot of homework to avoid headache. And you have to try and be clear about what you want. Because if you are not clear and this keeps changing, then it becomes very difficult for people to satisfy you in terms of timeline.
Definitely. And on that term, we're speaking a lot about this podcast about, other experiences and other things you've gone through on the magnificent journey of yours in Dubai and in fit out industry. And I wanted to ask you, so our viewers will understand, because I think we're seeing the way you look at things and the way you see the processes and the entire the entire choices and possibilities that people have. But can you just tell us, what do you think that separates your company out of few other fit out companies? And you mentioned few of those that are existing here in Dubai. What do you think that sets you apart?
Price-wise, we're very competitive. Service-wise, we are growing, but we can communicate in multiple languages. I would say that, as I told you, there's a very high-end bracket, there's a very low-end bracket. We are in neither, but we are in the middle. And we are very flexible in terms of different clients' requirements. So very few of our projects look like the other ones because it's what you're looking for. We can provide you with design if you wish. We are approved with government authorities to take all the approvals in-house. So we don't have to use any third parties. And the most important thing, I think, is that we did make a lot of mistakes in the early years. They were quite...
Like anyone does it, yeah.
So we have now learned from those mistakes, even in terms of client selection, even in terms of the right vendors for the right projects, even in terms of the timeline pathway, what is the best for each client because there are people who are fairly relaxed about the timeline. There are people who are super, if I don't get in on this day, I'm going to kill myself. So we have to we understand the different, and our team has been around for a long time. We have people on board who have been doing work on our sites from 2016. We have people on the office team who have been there since 2017. So people have stayed with us a long time. So not just my experience, but my team has experience in every changing aspect of the Dubai fit out market. So, and of course, I cannot tell you like if you say there are like 60 projects a year, there will be one or two which will always be a little bit up and down, but we always finish. It doesn't matter. I could be like, we could have a skirmish, and I understand that some things have not gone the way you wanted. But the point is, this is what you paid me, and this is what I need to finish. We finish, and we are like quite happy. And there are the ones who every time they get a new project, they don't even call anybody else. It's just like, okay, you did our office, now you have to do our next office and things like that. Yeah. So we've had the full spectrum of experience, and technically speaking, we can help people like not have a negative experience if they so wish not to.
You know, Supriya, I've been doing so many of those interviews. I'm talking to so many people, and everyone always, you know, lighting their brighter side and their nicer side. And I really, really appreciate and like the way you speak and the authenticity that comes from you, because it's you know, everyone can say, hey, we are 100% satisfied clients and everything is going well and we are so good in what we are doing. And you are coming here and you're saying, hey, we are good, but we are also people and we can make mistakes, which is amazing to me. And I really like the way you were thinking. And I think that this path of authenticity will bring and is bringing a lot of people to your side.
We have a lot of inquiries at all times. We have a lot of clients who work with us. But we also have to understand that you're not for everybody. There are people who have different expectations, and maybe your company is not the right fit for them. But of course, we have a lot of business at any given time, because we've been around a long time. But I cannot tell you that there is no company, to be honest, that has to go from like 0 to 12 years without having some
difficulties.
It's impossible. And in Dubai, there are a lot, because you see, we have 140 plus nationalities. Sometimes it's not even I'm speaking English to you and you're speaking English to me, but we're not speaking English to each other because you're understanding something completely different from what I'm saying. I'm trying to say it in a way, and you are like hearing something else, really. Not because I'm saying something different, it's just that we are not getting each other. There are a lot of communication challenges because tonality, the way people speak in different cultures, the way, and, now, of course, it's 12 years in, but when you're younger, you're also more hot-headed. You're like, whatever, I'm ready to fight. But now you're like, okay, look, I've seen it all. Let's just, and see, for me, the challenge was also I'm a woman in like a field which is like filled with all the rough and tumble, deliver sand to site, hammer tools, scaffolding, all this stuff. So women are generally a little bit more risk averse than men, let's be honest. So when stuff happens, you become more freaked out. But then you learn and then you develop processes to prevent such things from happening because they're not fun. And then that's how you get better at anything.
Definitely. I appreciate what you're saying so much. And actually, Supriya, we're coming to the end of this podcast. It's been really, really fast and really, I really enjoyed it. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the future. We talked a lot about the past and your experience here in Dubai. Let's talk a little bit about the future. How are you seeing the real estate market in Dubai? Are you seeing the fit-out market in Dubai? Or maybe even the trends changing in the, let's say, few years from now?
See, Dubai has always been underestimated by everybody. As I told you, in 2008, we drove around with investors and they would be like, who's going to come in these buildings? And now everybody's in these buildings. They suddenly made like Sheikh Zayed Road freehold. They have done new regulations saying that landlords can only increase the rents now in residential if the property is upgraded, which is fair enough because people have owned these properties for a long time and they should invest in them. So for us, I see a lot of scope to grow and develop. I would say that for me in the future, I would like to make sure that we grow at a steady rate instead of, one of these roller coasters because I don't love those at all. So, but of course, it's sometimes a challenge because Dubai itself is growing so fast that containing your own growth becomes difficult. I definitely see Dubai as a place that the trend has been very different from like past because I've been here as a student who just passed out and now my kids are like maybe going to go to college and all in this time here. So there was a time when people just used Dubai as a springboard to go to a Western country. Now Dubai is a place that people finding the Western countries are a bit chaotic are looking as a safe haven. So we're talking about in 20 years from everyone going outwards, now everyone's coming inwards. So of course, there is a lot of potential over here. And Dubai has always had an advantage of being a safe haven when other places in the world are chaotic. People bring their money. They're like, whatever's happening in the rest of the world, this is a safe place. Not only is it a safe place, it's a place where I can bring up my family. It's a place where I can get all the amenities and comforts that I would like while being safe. So I think Dubai has not even seen the beginning of its growth. We are really at the beginning of what is to come. And I'm very optimistic, to be honest. I hope that I'm up to the challenge of leading a bigger team, a larger company. Honestly, if I have a lot of money lying around, real estate is still the best investment. I would 100%, 1000% buy a property and upgrade it myself. Because if you do that, yes, see, if you invest in Bitcoin, if you invest in anything, anyone who made real money, they always saw that it went down also quite a few times, but they held it. So if you have the money, you should buy anything, an office, apartment, renovate it, put it on rent, short term. Yes, maybe there will be 6 months in a further dip. That would be the best time to buy, to be honest, because everyone has faith in this place. So the dips have to come because they are really corrections.
Definitely. I agree with you so much on that. And with the view on Dubai, I think the entire UAE, not just Dubai, will continue seeing an amazing growth because it gives something that other places just don't have.
Yes.
So we'll continue to see that. And I wish you and your businesses and your fit out company and whatever you are doing to continue on that direction as well. Supriya Fernandez, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Yes, it's been great.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us. See you next time. Bye-bye. All right. It's been almost 50 minutes.
That's too much, I think.
Yeah, it's very good. We have a lot to discuss. It's very good.
The problem I have is that I'm very good. I talk too much. That's why my business does well.
I want to do just one more thing, if it's okay. I want to ask you, how was this interview for you, just on camera? If that's okay. Fine. So we can just take those.
No
just
problem.
2 minutes of that.
That's for you, and then
Thank you.
Definitely like.
Thank you very much. Hello, welcome to Behind the Scenes of our podcast place. We show what's going on after the recording. I want to say hello again to Supriya Fernandez. Hey, Supriya, how are you?
Hi.
So we just finished this interview. It's been really innovative for me because I'm hearing so many people. I've did hundreds of those, maybe thousands of those interviews. And you are so authentic, so real, speaking the truth, for the real, honest truth from your heart. And it's really showing. I wanted to ask you, how was this interview for you?
It was very interesting, to be honest. Like I'm actually an extroverted thinker. So in a way, I think while I speak. So speaking to you, not just like helped clarify my, like our discussion, but it also helped clarify and streamline my thoughts. And I think that was amazing experience because I feel very energized. And I hope that people can get some information from this. I think it's very beneficial for people to understand a lot of things which are going on through these podcasts. So it was amazing. I would highly recommend people like come in and definitely do this for their business, just for themselves to understand and even have a record of, everything. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for all these words. And I really hope that these materials will help you promote yourself, promote your business and run anything. And I wanted to ask you, because we've done a small Zoom call before this interview to sort the questions out. How much you feel that process helped you come in more prepared, more concise with the topics you wanted to discuss on today?
I think it helped, but I also think that it helps in the sense just to give you a feel, because it's very important that this is a podcast. So we should have a conversation more than an interview, really. And I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed your vibe as well and everything you brought to the table. So Supriya Fernandez, thank you so much for coming again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.